Right now from townhall.com, Katie Pavlich is with us. Katie, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I am good. A lot of stuff to talk about. Let's
Yes.
get started, if you don't mind, with Fast and Furious, because I think that's the bigger story. The Univision special last night, did you have a chance to watch it?
I did. I watched what I could and translated my best Spanish. I speak some Spanish, but not the best. So my feed was not doing the subtitles, but I did get to see most of it.
Unfortunately, I had to DVR it, and I didn't get the subtitles either. I was messing with my TV all day long. So I wonder, Katie, if there was perhaps technical problems.
Yeah, no, there was.
Captioning.
I was on Twitter and live tweeting it last night, and tons of people who were trying to tune in couldn't get it, which I think was a little embarrassing for us Americans who don't speak two languages.
Well,
so I said I was going to go get Rosetta Stone and start learning my Spanish again.
Well, hopefully they'll perhaps repeat the show. However, we do know that there was some new information. 57 more guns connected to crimes that had not previously been reported, including a couple of really big events in Mexico, including an event where I believe 14 teenagers were killed, 12 others were wounded when basically a death squad opened fire on them in Juarez, and these guns were connected to Fast and Furious. And perhaps most importantly, Katie, Univision talked about Operation Castaway. They talked about the operations in Dallas and in Houston, where guns were allowed to walk. And this completely obliterates the entire basis of the Inspector General's report, which is that Fast and Furious and the gun walking in Fast and Furious was just something that was dreamt up locally in Phoenix and in Tucson.
Right, exactly. And that's something that we've been saying all along, is why the executive privilege from President Obama if this is a really a centralized local program when clearly this was a national thing that they were engaging in. And what I really thought was very compelling last night is Univision showed how exactly who the Justice Department was arming. They were arming people who were willing to go into a teenager's birthday party and kill them, mow them down for none other than, they had a problem. And so I thought they really put a good face on. These are the kinds of people who the Justice Department was heavily arming, and these are the kinds of people who were being killed as a result. And the scene that stuck out to me was a mother of two teenagers who were killed with Fast and Furious guns is standing in front of President Felipe Calderon on video and begging him and saying, if this was your son, you would be investigating it, and instead you're doing nothing, which is absolutely true. And then they interviewed another guy who was, kind of like a pundit in Mexico, a political pundit, and he said, look, the advantages of being in politics in Mexico outweigh any desire to get any answers on this from the Mexican people. And so, it sounds to me, and I'm not surprised, that the Mexican government is acting kind of similar to the Holder Justice Department in terms of not wanting to get any answers about this.
Well, absolutely. And that's the thing. Katie, look, this administration is going to continue to stonewall. Eric Holder's not going anywhere as long as Barack Obama is president. It is going to take a new administration in order to, I think, rescind that claim of executive privilege and to get these documents released. Right.
No, I agree. Eric Holder's not going to go anywhere. I have heard that he's, if President Obama wins the second term, Eric Holder will, resign with honors and probably go off to some law school and be upheld there with honors as well. But in terms of seeing any, consequences from President Obama, they're not going to see anything. And I thought also it was interesting, 2 weeks ago, President Obama got up on Univision and lied about the fact that Fast and Furious started 9 months into his administration. And last night, Univision's report completely blew that out of the water once again, showing deliberately that this started well into President Obama's term, and Eric Holder did nothing to stop it. I mean, at the end of the program, they made it very clear that they weren't content with the way that Eric Holder has responded to this. And they didn't pull any punches. I mean, Univision said, look, They didn't care about killing Mexicans. They needed guns to go into Mexico so they could find out where they were ending up. This was part of their plan. They had no plans to stop them before they ended up at crime scenes. They profiled Bill Newell, who, of course, still thinks to this day that he did nothing wrong. They talked about how he needed the guns to go into Mexico and show up at these violent crime scenes so they could see where they were going. And they said, look, they really did not care that Mexicans were getting slaughtered. The only reason they started to care was when one of our federal agents in America was killed.
Yeah, well, and look, I mean, Katie, Fast and Furious stopped when Brian Terry was murdered. I mean that look, there's no way around it, and it seems like, frankly, Barack Obama and this administration came in talking about the way to deal with the violence in Mexico was through gun control laws here in the United States.
Right.
And it's an amazing thing that if you believe that restricting the availability of firearms in the United States is how you deal with the drug cartel violence in Mexico, you would think that you would not want to put 2,000 guns directly into the hands of drug cartel members.
Right.
Exactly. So it's where does this go from here, Katie?
Well, I think that, this is something we've been asking for a long, long time, and whether this can affect the presidential election, whether Fast and Furious will play any role whatsoever in the election coming up in November. And I really do think that we won't see it probably this week in Denver for the first presidential debate, but I think because it's focused on domestic policy, I think once we get into the foreign policy debate, that Fast and Furious will definitely come up when the topic of Mexico comes up, because it will. It comes up in every presidential debate, whether it's a primary or a general election. The relationship with Mexico will come up. It's a perfect opportunity for Mitt Romney to say, look, you have heavily damaged our relationship with Mexico. People in Mexico think that you should have fired Eric Holder a long time ago, and all you can say is that you have full faith and confidence in the way that he has handled a scandal where your Justice Department sent thousands of guns into the cartels so they could mow down 16-year-olds at a birthday party. I mean, it's a perfect opportunity for him to really put an emotional spin on it, which the emotion is there.
Right.
And also politically to say, look, this is just a long line of incompetence in terms of the way Barack Obama runs his administration, whether it's Eric Holder, feeling like he's vindicated and did nothing wrong in Fast and Furious and everyone else was in the wrong, or whether it's Susan Rice going on every single Sunday show and lying to the American people about what happened, and then there's Hillary Clinton, and you go down the list. And so it could be a perfect opportunity for Mitt Romney to really bring up and talk about what actually went on here. And we've said this a million times, this is not taxpayer money. This is people's lives here. And I was happy to see, too, that Jaime Zapata, who was the ICE agent killed in Mexico, was finally brought up again, because he's kind of been swept under the rug as well in terms of, he was killed with guns that were locked as too, right out of Texas.
Absolutely. It was interesting. In my Twitter feed, Miguel, who runs the blog Gun Free Zone, said, according to Univision, Agent Avila has actually gone into hiding. Said there was no reason to do the duty assigned on the day of the shooting, but they were told to do this. So, there are a lot of questions out there, Katie. In this Inspector General's report, one of the things we were concerned about was how broad the scope was going to be.
Right.
And they found the two cases that they wanted to look at, but they completely ignored the larger question of, was gun walking occurring in other jurisdictions, and what does that mean?
Right, exactly. And one thing, too, back to the going into hiding situation, I really want to applaud the Univision reporters, because Mexico is the #1 country in the world now for the assassination of journalists. And they were down in Mexico on the side of the freeway where Jaime Zapata was shot, and they were doing their job. And that takes a lot of courage. And so, it's pretty hard to take when the mainstream media here won't cover it from afar. And you have these Univision reporters down in Mexico actually willing to put their lives on the line. Might sound dramatic, but it's true, to get us the story.
Absolutely. It was. I mean, really, it's great journalism, and frankly, U.S. media could learn a lot. you know?
Yeah, learn a lot.
Absolutely.
They won't, though.
No, they
Yeah.
won't. I mean, no, and they're not until November the 7th at least, and that depends on how close the election is, you know?
Yeah,
All right,
they're a
so
bunch of cowards.
yeah.
So.
Well, we've got a couple of minutes. Let's talk about what Chicago is doing. I thought this was
Yes, please.
really interesting. They've decided to ask on Twitter for folks to submit ideas about, in their words, what to do to get illegal guns off the street by using the hashtag #WhatIfChicago. Katie, it hasn't really gone the way the city was hoping for.
Right. I think some of our friends got on there and said, well, maybe if you would allow concealed carry, you would have less crime in Chicago. Maybe if you guys weren't such gun Nazis, you wouldn't have so much crime in Chicago. I mean, I love it when the left gets on Twitter and they think that they're going to, actually get a job done with their hashtags, and they just get completely hijacked with common sense. And then they're back to square one.
It's always nice. Now, what I'm interested in seeing if the city just ignores all of this, because
Right.
I mean, Katie, I got to tell you, I mean, I've been looking for the real, the pro gun control tweets. I've been looking for them. I can't find them. I don't think anybody's writing in saying, how about this gun law? How about that gun law? You know?
Because they already have all of the gun laws, Cam. We have all the gun laws that you can possibly have under the Supreme Court ruling that you can have in the country. I mean, there's nowhere else to go.
That's a very good point. So, because of that, and now again, I think maybe the city of Chicago has kind of boxed themselves in a little bit. They asked for ideas, and the number one idea they're getting right now is concealed carry. Again, I don't expect Rahm Emanuel to drop his opposition to concealed carry, do you?
No, I don't think so, because guess what? Gun control and so-called gun safety isn't really about gun safety at all. It's about control. They don't care about really, citizens being able to protect themselves. They like controlling things, and they like it that you have to call the police to be protected, because it gives the police officers more things to do. No disrespect to police officers. We respect what you do, but you know that the only person who can really protect you is you. And the city of Chicago seems to have not been able to figure that out yet, despite the lawsuits and despite the fact that the rest of the country has passed concealed carry in every single state except Illinois. And they've seen their crime rates go down. The FBI crime stats have gone down steadily in the past 5 years. Why? Because more people are carrying guns and protecting themselves.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Katie, appreciate you coming on the program, and look forward to talking again, hopefully very soon.
As always, we'll talk to you soon.